Welcome back, everybody. 22 minutes before 8 on this Friday morning. Let's talk the SABC now. And Parliament's Oversight Committee on Communication has announced the names to be interviewed to fill the 8 board vacancies at the SABC. Just this week, Parliament had decided to pause the shortlisting process to conduct exit interviews that will give insight into what the problems are at the SABC. But yesterday, the committee went ahead and announced the 20 candidates. The shortlist will be published on Parliament's website for public comments, and interviews will be conducted from the 5th to the 7th of March. Joining us now on the line is William Bird. He's the Director of Media Monitoring Africa. William, great to have you. Thanks so much for your time.
Hi, good morning, Leah. Thanks for having me on the program.
So talk to us about what happened. So there was a bit of an about turn. First, there were going to be exit interviews. There was going to be a delay to the shortlist, and then it all changed, and now we have the shortlist. What happened?
So, look, in essence, there's been a faction within the committee that has been seeking deliberately to delay the appointment of SABC board members. Now, Parliament has known about this. They've known that they've needed new board members for over a year, but it's become critical since sort of July 2018. And then since December, we've had an inchoate board. So you've effectively had the public broadcaster, which is already facing a probably deep financial crisis, then facing a governance crisis just before the elections. And so we've been engaging with Parliament and sending them threatening letters. And we were about to launch legal proceedings against them when they then had another U-turn and decided to go ahead with the appointments process. And they've now thankfully shortlisted the 24 candidates. So we have to hope that this is a real commitment to actually making sure that the SABC can quorate before the election. Yeah,
which is a big thing because, I mean, you need at least that quorum with the board for that good coverage of the elections coming up. So let's talk about the shortlist. This was, of course, derived from almost 400 nominees, actually. What is your comment on some of the names that have been announced?
So, look, I think it's a bit of a mixed bag. We need to still do our own research to see what we can find out about some of them, and that's just to help Parliament do its job. So I think that there is an important shift that we've seen in Parliament over the last few years. The fact that they're putting the CVs and the names up on their website is an important element of transparency. But there are also members there who really should not be there on any kind of a shortlist, except maybe a shortlist for who's going to get into hell first. But beyond that, I think that certainly if they take their job seriously, we should find ourselves with excellent candidates for the board.
Yeah. I'd be interested to hear you elaborate a little bit on the comment that you just made, that some of those names should absolutely not be there. Would you like to expand on that for us? Which names would you think should be absolutely not there?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have the list before me right now, but one of the names is obviously the former board member, Lulama, and she should not be there. You know, she's not covered herself in glory. She was there during the Tlani Motsuneng years, and certainly she should not even be on that shortlist. And there are a few others that have also not certainly done themselves any favours and certainly acted against the public interest in a number of respects. Yeah. But I'm hopeful that with enough public scrutiny and hopefully some of the media will be analysing the names and the possible candidates, that we can come up with people who deserve to be in those positions. Yeah. Because one of the key challenges we faced over the decades with the SABC is that instead of putting the best people in there, we've often had a scenario where some of the worst people have been deliberately put in positions of power to keep the institution in crisis, and this hopefully is a turning point.
Yeah, the Lulama you're talking about is Lulama Mokobo, who, for viewers perhaps may or may not remember, she used to be the CEO of the SABC at the time when our former COO Tlani Motsuneng was around, and that was a very difficult time for the organisation. So a lot of people, I suppose, surprised to see her name being on the shortlist there. The way we're sitting right now, obviously, we've literally got 4 remaining board members. The organisation is under a lot of pressure financially and otherwise. You know, when they can't quorate as a board and they're unable to make decisions, what impact does this have on the organisation?
Well, it's really critical, and again, it's a deliberately engineered crisis by people who are seeking to destabilize the public broadcaster. I mean, here you've got the SABC with no idea that actually they can cover the elections appropriately and adequately. So, and that's because they don't have the money. Now, bear in mind that if they don't have a quorum board and if they don't get the guarantee, the SABC may well be liquidated by the end of March. I mean, it's completely insane that we're in that position. And yet again, government has known that the SABC has been facing this dire financial crisis for over a year. So the fact that we're now getting to the point where we're saying, listen, this is what's going to happen. They won't be able to pay salaries in March unless they get their guarantee. And let's bear in mind that what the SABC is looking for is not a bailout. Bailout is what they hand out to Eskom, SAA, Denel, and all these other places that seem to flush the money down the toilet the moment they get it. A bailout, a guarantee is about saying the government will guarantee X amount of money, and that in return the SABC will actually pay that money back.
Yeah.
Which talks about it in a very different thing. It's not sort of wasting your money. It's saying they need to get out of this crisis. Now, we know that as the biggest broadcaster in the country and playing such a critical role, there is certainly a viable financial and sustainable model for the SABC. All you need is good people in the right places who are competent and have the right skills, who can help build trust and credibility. And we've seen over the last period, since we've had the new board and since we've had a good senior management team, that the SABC really is rebuilding its trust and credibility. I mean, on so many levels, it's an incredible turnaround. The fact that you had the SABC breaking the story about a minister seeking to censor their journalists is an amazingly powerful thing. It's a very positive indicator of independence. We've seen the SABC coming out strongly against sexual harassment, which is, again, one of those things that more often than not tends to be swept under the carpet. So there really are so many signs and things that we should be feeling very optimistic and positive about. It's just that there are, unfortunately, those who want to keep the SABC in crisis.
Yeah. You have highlighted some great positives within the SABC, but the DA actually suggested in Parliament that the SABC have an independent board that will see to its finances. Do you think this is the answer? I mean, will this assist the situation at the SABC?
So, look, what we do know is that since the Justice Motajani ruling at the end of 2017, we have, for the first time ever in our democratic history, enacted a real independent board. So it's the first chance that we're actually giving those that are in control the chance to actually show that they can do their job. Because previously, every time we had people that did try and do that, ministers would come along and interfere, Parliament would come along and interfere. And now they're saying, no, this is the buck stops with the board. So the board are the ones who make the appointments of the top managers and all of those issues, and it's not the minister. And previously, the ministerial interference was cited as a reason for any number of board members having resigned. So with an independent board who put forward a plan, it must be scrutinized. They need to be held accountable to it, but we need to give them a chance to actually do that. And at the moment, we're not even doing that because Parliament allowed the board to be in court, and Parliament and government, more importantly, have allowed the SABC to deepen its financial crisis instead of actually trying to help alleviate it by giving them a guarantee. And I fail to see why, having given an offered guarantee, bailouts to all these other entities, that we can't actually do things for a critical public institution. It's completely insane.
Very quickly, William, and just to wrap this up, I'm stealing just an extra couple of seconds. We heard Finance Minister Tito Mboweni during the budget speech saying that if the SABC does get a bailout from Treasury, a chief reorganization officer will be appointed. I mean, this basically, in a nutshell, says that the organization will be under administration. Is that what's needed at this stage at the SABC?
And in fact, I think that would be a gross invasion, and we would fight that with everything that we possibly could. I think it's fair to say they need to be accountable. Of course, there need to be terms and conditions attached to that, which needs to be that you need to spend it responsibly according to a plan, etc., etc. But to suggest that you can somehow insert someone into the institution when they've got no knowledge, no power or authority over that, either is a gross invasion or undermining of the independence, or it's simply it is illogical. In any event, it really does not sound like a good idea. But again, we'd have to see the details of that to actually understand what their thinking is.
All right, we leave it there. William Bird, thanks very, very much for talking to us. William, of course, is from Media Monitoring Africa. He's the director there, and we're talking to him about his perspectives on the SABC after Parliament's SABC candidates shortlist was announced yesterday. He doesn't have a list in front of him, but in his view and in his words, some of those names should absolutely not be